there's a relationship going on. There's a relationship going on between me and this world out there. And the whole tone of that relationship is determined not only by my beliefs about this world out there, but by my psychological disposition. My own mood pattern. My own moods determine how I interact or relate to that world out there. I was looking at a video recently that somebody posted. It was filled with lots of little clips of people saying how there isn't a world out there. All we get are electrical signals. We're told, or we assume, that these electrical signals represent something out there, but there's no way of knowing. In fact, I would go even further and say, well, this whole story of electrical signals is also part of the belief in a world out there. So there are lots of people making this point. The thing is, where do you go from here? So what? You've still got to continue behaving as if there is a world out there, as if there are something called the senses, which are actually revealing a world out there. But this isn't very satisfactory. So what we do is we come back to what we know is real, and that's our own moods. Now again, we need some handle on this. Otherwise we're just chucking ourselves into a raging torrent. We need to come back to what is not only aware of these moods, but is aware of this thing normally referred to as an external physical world. And what is aware of this is awareness itself, or consciousness. It's in operation right now. It's because of this that you're hearing this, or looking at the video, or feeling certain sensation in your chair, maybe a bit uncomfortable, or a sensation of tiredness, or perhaps you're feeling that you're nodding off, or perhaps you're a bit irritated by this guy, or perhaps you're impressed by him, or whatever. All this is going on within your awareness, or it's not even your awareness, because you are also a construct. It's all going on within awareness, but you have access to it. Now, in the language of the sutra, the external world, the world that we relate to, is called the Paratantra. Not just the physical world, but all the cultural beliefs about it. And the other side of that relationship, the me part, is referred to as the Parikalpita. This is sometimes translated as the false imagination. It's really just imagination, because it's how we imagine things to be. It's the reality that we operate in accordance with. It's our picture of reality. And because it's imagination, it's actually false. It's not real. This is the Parikalpita. In the previous verse we were told that once we've dismantled the whole notion of an external physical world, then what remains is this Parikalpita, which is what I said. It's our moods, our ideas, our feelings, and so on. That's what's real. But we're told that this Parikalpita becomes suchness. Well, it only becomes suchness when we know the context within which it arises. This is rather like the Maya-like samadhi, the samadhi described as Maya-like. Samadhi is a state of liberation, and Maya is the state of delusion. So how can liberation be like delusion? But it takes its cue from delusion. I mentioned previously how I was recently given a steroid injection in the backside. I was told it would alleviate my physical symptoms, which are those of limited mobility. I have a swollen knee, painful swollen knee, and a right heel that is swollen. Well, it didn't, but what it did do is it stabilized things. It stabilized this fluctuating mood pattern that I was experiencing because of it. But it also took away this sense of an energy body, this really vibrant energy body. And I was missing that. It's come back now, the steroid seems to have worn off. So that's good. The point here is, though, that consciousness needs something to work against. It works against its own power of delusion. So when I have this energy body, it gives me something to, when I feel this energy coursing through me, it gives me something to focus on and a reminder to come back to awareness. When we have our moods, our feelings, our thoughts, our passions, our addictions, our fetishes, these are all reminders to come back to awareness, to come back to that which is aware of them. And this is suchness. So that's a bit of a preamble, a summary of what's gone before. Let's press on with the next verse. 530. When the Parikalpita is destroyed, my Dharma-eye is destroyed, and there takes place within my teaching assertion and negation. Now, I think we're heading off in a slightly different direction here, and it gives us some idea of the context, the actual physical context of the sutra. I think the sutra might be losing the plot a little bit here, perhaps for the first time, because this Parikalpita cannot be destroyed. Any more than suchness can be destroyed. So the Buddha is saying, when the Parikalpita is destroyed, my Dharma-eye is destroyed. The Dharma-eye is the eye of wisdom. It's that which speaks from awareness. So it's not a good thing that it's destroyed. Now the Parikalpita, that's probably a word that you've not heard before. It's certainly not a word I'd come across before looking at this sutra. It's not one that seems to be in common parlance even amongst Buddhists. And the point here really is that it's simply a springboard or stepping stone to awareness. So what I'm assuming here is that there's been some debate about this Parikalpita, and the very notion is perhaps being dismissed or disparaged. So I think this is what's meant by the Parikalpita being destroyed. The Dharma-eye is destroyed. In other words, the whole point of the teaching has been missed. The whole point of the teaching is not to build up some body of concepts, some philosophical system. The whole point of the teaching, the whole point of these videos is liberation. The words are being used, hopefully, to point us to liberation. The series I did before this was on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and somebody recently asked me for the text I'd used in preparing my lectures. And there were certainly books that I used as points of reference. And I use Wikipedia quite a lot. But the actual content of my videos wasn't from any books. It was from putting into practice what the Yoga Sutras were about. The Yoga Sutras point us to our essential awareness. In realizing this, I took each of the sutras and attempted to illustrate how this was pointing us to awareness. So it wasn't that I was summarizing anything that I'd read in any books, but I found this quite hard to explain in a YouTube comment, so I just directed the questioner to a list of references that I'd used in the preparation of the sutras on my webpage. And you might remember a while back I was a bit annoyed about a Stanford University encyclopedia website referring to the Buddha as a philosopher. Well, if they refer to him as a philosopher, then certainly the Buddha's Dharma-eye is destroyed. We are missing the true import of the teaching. So this is what this and the next few verses are about. Once we fail to understand that the Buddha's teaching isn't about transmitting concepts, then we're getting caught up in assertion and negation. The translator, Professor Suzuki, has put in brackets the controversy of assertion and negation. In other words, it all becomes arguing about concepts. So this is a destruction of the Dharma-eye. And this is what the next few verses are about. 531. In this way then, and at that time, there will arise disparagers of the Dharma, none of whom are worth talking with, as they are destroyers of my Dharma-eye. I mean, you'll get people that just love these ideas. They love spiritual ideas. They love talking about such things. They might be genuinely inspired by them. But this isn't the point. The point is realization. The point is to come back to what Douglas Harding calls headless seeing. Or come back to true realization of the awareness that is hearing this. Disparagers of the Dharma. The trouble is, very few people are capable of appreciating this. I find amongst most of my acquaintances, and even people that are quite in tune with a lot of this stuff, I get what I would describe as a polite indifference to my videos. Even my own attitude to my videos is a little bit disparaging sometimes, although when I actually tune into them properly, then I remember where they're coming from, and in this lies their power. But it's so easy to forget, so easy to disparage them. Verse 532, gives us more of the same. As they are not taken into the company of the intelligent, they abandon the life of the Bhikshu, and as they destroy the Parikalpita, they are engaged in controversies, asserting and negating. So the Bhikshu is the traditional Buddhist monk, although in this context it's really somebody who's in tune with the Dharma-eye, someone who's in tune with the awareness from which everything proceeds. 533. As their insight is bound up with being and non-being, what appears to their imagination resembles a hairnet, Maya a dream, the Gandharva city a mirage, etc. So these are the ones that are involved in philosophical discussion and debate or argumentation. There isn't a system of thought being presented here which you can take apart or agree with at your leisure. It's a signpost. You can either follow it or not. But there's no point arguing about the signpost. You might not like the shape of it. You might not like the lettering on it. You might not like the substance it's made from. But really what you need to do is find out where it's pointing to. Because the signpost, its only value is where it's pointing to. As their insight is bound up with being and non-being, those are the ones engaged in controversies, saying that it's like this and it's not like that, being and non-being. So what appears to their imagination, their Parikalpita even, resembles a hairnet. A hairnet holds the unruly strands of hair in place, gives it a certain shape. This is what we do. We need to make patterns. We find patterns and try and find connections between patterns and so on. Maya. Maya is the power of delusion. A dream, the Gandharva city, castles in the sky, a mirage, etc. 534. He who studies under the Buddhas may not live together with those who cherish dualism and are destroyers of others. Well, we've got no choice but to live with such people. But what we relate to is the Buddhas. The Buddhas and the Dharma-eye. The eye of wisdom. The eye that sees things as they really are. 535. But if there are yogins who see a being separated from the imagination and released from existence and non-existence, he may associate with them. Or really what we want to do is expose ourselves to these teachings as often as possible. So a yogin is one who sees a being separated from the imagination. And this is the step from the Parikalpita to awareness, which I sometimes describe as a sense of being, a sense of pure being. It's a sense of presence, of witnessing, of awareness. It's when the attention is resting back in its source. So this is the yogin. And is released from existence and non-existence, is released from that whole process, the whole cognitive process by which we assert the reality of one thing against the non-reality of other things. This is real, the horse is real, the unicorn is imagination. God is real, God is imagination. Take your pick. We're released from that process. So we want to be careful. about getting lost in conceptual debate, conceptual understanding. It's not important. All the book stuff, all the beliefs, let's remember to drop them for pure being.